What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Lions video. Now, training camp has officially kicked off for the Detroit Lions. I was incorrect. It did not start on July 31st. It actually started a few days ago. And of course, with that being the case, with the first couple of days of training camp being already complete, we are going to be talking about the biggest takeaways. Today, we're just going to focus on the first day. But of course, over the next couple of days, weeks, and months, we are of course going to be focusing on the remaining of training camp, going over everything from rookies to new coaches to the new players and veterans returning, and really obviously try to paint the picture of this Detroit Lions roster and this Detroit Lions franchise going into the preseason and of course into the regular season of 2021. However, before we get into that video, before we start talking about the biggest takeaways from day one of training camp, if you're new to the channel and you are enjoying the content, please consider liking the videos and subscribe to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It's quick, it's free, and it is incredibly easy to do, and you would be helping the channel out more than you could possibly know. So if you could do that, take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe. I'd be greatly appreciative for it. But with all of that being said, and without any further ado, let's get right into talking about day one of Detroit Lions training camp.
So we get Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
Now, the first and most obvious takeaway from this first day of camp, and really the first and biggest takeaway overall so far, has really been the culture change that's taken place since Dan Campbell has taken over as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. Even through the first day of training camp, even in their first day without fully padded practices, you could see that it was a tough practice. It was a day of hard work and high intensity, but unlike Matt Patricia's training camps, they were also a day of fun and high energy and laughs and getting to know your teammates, and they enjoyed playing football. And from all accounts, from everybody from DeAndre Swift to Jeff Okudah to Michael Brockers, and really a lot of the NFL players and a lot of especially the returning veterans, there are a lot of differences in this organization from a year ago to right now. Right, Matt Patricia did have his team work hard in training camp, but he wasn't allowing all this fun to occur, wasn't allowing his players to enjoy playing football, wasn't allowing his players to enjoy what they were doing, and that kind of, I think, really hurt them mentally even before they ever hit the field in the regular season. Whereas Dan Campbell's culture is very different from all accounts. You can ask any player in the building and the culture is different. Dan Campbell is different. He's out there working out with his players, right? He's not sitting on the sideline. He's not riding around on a four-wheeler or, on a scooter or anything like that. He's out there doing up downs with his players. He's out there doing and running conditioning with his players, and you can even see and believe in the second day of practice, which we'll touch on tomorrow, there was a new player in the building who missed the first day of conditioning, so he had to do extra up downs at the end of practice, and all of his teammates were around him and they started doing that with him, and they weren't forced to do it. They weren't even asked to do it necessarily, but they wanted to stick together as a team. And even as the newest player in the building, he was still brought in and treated as if he was a 10-year veteran in the organization and still had the respect of all of his other peers and had the respect of all the other players around him, which I think is a very, very good stepping stone on building and, more so rebuilding the culture that Matt Patricia tore down. Now, speaking of this culture being brought up, there was a lot of veterans that helped with this. It obviously wasn't just Dan Campbell, and obviously the coaches are not the only players that can help build up a culture, especially when it comes to the hard work, the work ethic, and the energy at practice. Michael Brockers, the newly acquired, I guess now not free agent, but the newly acquired defensive tackle that we got from the Los Angeles Rams via trade this offseason, has been a very vocal leader in the Detroit Lions locker room and on the field early in training camp. You know, he was a player, being a veteran and being around the NFL for a very long time, was a player that was very crucial of his teammates and held everybody accountable and held everybody to a very high level and a very high standard throughout the entirety of the practice. And he wasn't doing it as a rude way. He wasn't being mean or being, ruthless about it or anything like that. He wasn't trying to put his teammates down. He was being constructive. He was helping his teammates, correcting them and showing them how to fix what maybe they were doing wrong, and really took it upon himself, especially within the defensive line room, to kind of become that leader, become that veteran. Even though it's his first year with the team, he kind of took it upon himself to take leadership, to take charge, and really make sure everybody is playing at their best and making sure everybody is staying at a very high level and playing their best football. And then Jamal Williams, another player that is a first-year member of this Lions team, a player that was actually brought in via free agency, was a player that about 90 minutes into practice, about an hour and a half in, as that fatigue started to set in, as your players started to get tired, and as practice, the energy level was starting to drop a little bit at this point, Jamal Williams was a player that kind of stood up with everybody and kept the energy high, kept everybody going, kind of kept spirits high as that fatigue set in, and really upped the intensity in practice even more so than the beginning. Even though that fatigue and that tiredness had already set in, Jamal Williams is a player that we've talked about before, kind of brings that infectious energy, and that was a big thing that he brought as early as the first day of training camp. As soon as he saw his teammates starting to lag, as soon as he saw his teammates starting to just kind of, show that fatigue and kind of show that tiredness and slow down a little bit and let that energy level drop, he was right there to pick them all right back up and keep that energy level as high as it could possibly be so that they could get the most out of practice. Speaking of Michael Brockers taking responsibility over that defensive line, the defensive line was really a big focal point of the first day of practice. Jashon Cornell especially is a player that stood out. Jashon Cornell, a former 7th round pick in the 2020 NFL draft and was the last player drafted by the Quinn Trisha era, is a guy that missed the entire regular season a year ago, as he unfortunately tore his Achilles on a year ago at this point on the first day of training camp of his rookie season. He tore his Achilles, which inevitably left him out for his entire rookie season, and he did not end up actually getting to play. However, he is back on the field and showed a lot of really good things. Specifically, his athleticism and his quickness off the ball is something that really impressed coaches and something that really impressed a lot of people at camp. He doesn't seem to have taken a step back. A lot of Jashon Cornell's qualities, and a lot of the reason that he was drafted was his upside and was his athleticism and quickness and potential. And even though he did tear his Achilles a season ago, it doesn't seem like that athleticism or quickness has really left him a whole lot, and it seems like he is kind of back to the form where he was a season ago when he was drafted, coming in as a rookie that was expected to at least make a little bit of noise and push for at least some starting time and some, obviously starting snaps in the 2020 season. So that was a really good thing to see out of Jashon Cornell. He was a player that really stood out especially, but overall the entire defensive line stood out, and a lot of the guys on that defensive line had a very, very good first day of training camp, specifically a lot of them being rotational players, right? Michael Brockers is really the only player as of right now seemingly that has locked up and solidified his starting spot on the defensive line. However, even though Michael Brockers had locked it up, there were a lot of different rotations and a lot of different formations set on the defensive line throughout training camp. Michael Brockers, Levi Onwuzurike, Aleem McNeil, John Pennicini, Deshaun Hand, and many more players along that defensive line all took turns rotating around and taking first team reps with the first team defense. And although obviously some players are likely going to start over others, and obviously you're not going to be able to have all 6, 7, 8 of those defensive linemen on the field at the same time when you're playing in a 3-4 defense, it is good that everybody is competing, and it is good that everybody is working and getting starting reps, and it does show the level of competition and the high level of rotation the Lions could show this season with all the depth and all the talent that they do have to rotate and utilize around the entirety of this line. Now, going to the rookies a little bit, I know the rookies are really a big part of training camp and a part that everybody wants to hear about. I don't have news on everybody, but I do have a couple things and a couple of rookies to talk about. Derek Barnes will be the first. Derek Barnes unfortunately did not practice a lot. I don't understand quite why. It didn't say that he was injured or anything. He's not on an injury list or really hasn't shown a whole lot of concerns from the injury perspective. So I don't know why he was held out from a lot of the physical aspects of the game. However, when he was not on the field, he was seen talking with Chris Spielman quite often. Of course, Chris Spielman being a former Lion linebacker, being a former, top end linebacker in the NFL, and being one of the better linebackers in the NFL when he was in his prime and playing at his best. One of the best Lions defensive players ever, and arguably the best Lions linebacker to ever play. He was a guy that was giving Derek Barnes a lot of advice, a guy that was kind of showing Derek Barnes the ropes. And although he wasn't working out a lot physically in the first day of camp, he was, trying to kind of pick the brain of a former linebacker, pick the brain of somebody that was in this organization before, that has been in this city before, has played in a role that we expect Derek Barnes to play, and really from the mental side of the game was trying to learn a lot when he didn't have the opportunity to physically be on the field. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown did the same thing. Amon-Ra St. Brown and a lot of our rookies have been shown and have been seen seeking out a lot of veteran help and a lot of veteran experience, not because they're necessarily lacking or falling behind, but because they are committed to being the best players possible, and they understand that they're young, they understand that they don't know everything. So in their off time, when they're not on the field, a lot of our NFL rookies and a lot of our rookies from the 2021 class have been seen just speaking to veterans, learning, picking their brain, and really trying to learn as much as possible on and off the football field. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown specifically really showed out on the first day of camp, as he had a really good day during the practice, but it's what he did after practice that really stuck out to a lot of people. As soon as the Lions ended their practice and Dan Campbell called it a day for the first day of training camp, Amon-Ra went straight to the jugs machine and caught over 200 passes after practice, and it was said that Amon-Ra St. Brown was the first guy in the door, or was one of the first guys in the door, and was the very last player to leave the building that day. Again, catching over 200 passes with the jugs machine after practice, really committing to that excellence and really committing to not only reaching that NFL level even faster, but really committing to progressing and getting up to speed as fast as he can so that nothing will hold him back in his rookie season, and he can develop as properly and can develop as fastly as he can to be impactful for this Lions team immediately. And then the last thing that we're going to be talking about today is not necessarily a rookie, but it is a very young tight end, a player that was just picked up out of free agency that was drafted in 2019, and that is Alize Mack. Alize Mack is a player that we have talked about a couple different times on this channel over the past couple of months, and he yet again showed out very well in the first day of camp, and as of right now is looked at as and is expected to take the place of that tight end 3 spot. Of course, TJ will be the starter, Darren Fells will likely be tight end 2, but Alize Mack has really thrown his head in the ring and has really kind of gotten a grip around that tight end 3 spot, and right now it is his spot to lose. Right now he is kind of penciled in as that tight end 3, and it is his spot to lose. It is his spot until it is proven that somebody else can do his job better. And as of right now, just based off the way that Alize Mack has been playing, I don't see too many players having the ability to take his spot at tight end 3. Now, with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Those are the biggest takeaways from training camp today. Let me know what you think about this training camp. Let me know what you think about the takeaways. For me, again, I think the biggest thing is just the culture change. The biggest thing is these players working together and keeping everybody in line, keeping everybody in check, and making sure everybody is playing 100% at every single time and every single point throughout practice. I think that's the biggest difference from Quinn Trisha to obviously Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. The biggest thing has been the energy and the culture in the building, and of course with all of that, everything else is bound to fall in line right behind. But with all of that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. Of course, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below about this first day of training camp and what your biggest takeaways were. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!